Today we're going to continue life lessons with Mr. D and talk about college. Specifically, this first section is going to include your college selection, how you go about making the all important decision of choosing your college and where you're going to be for the next few years of your life. Before you choose your college, you have to carefully consider your career. Not every career is going to require you to even go to college and get a 4-year degree. Other careers will not be limited with one degree. You'll have to get 2 or 3 degrees. So it's very important that you know what your career is going to require of you. Community college is a great choice for a lot of people because they're closer, they're cheaper, they can allow you to live at home or commute to school, and still offer many of the benefits of college. Some of them will allow you to get a 2-year associate's degree or a 4-year bachelor's degree. Others will just allow you to take specific classes. It's important that you know what credits you're going into college with. If you've already taken AP classes and dual credit classes, you'll have some of your college already covered. It's important that these transfer to the school you want to attend. So if you have AP credit and dual credit and community college or a local junior college or something like that, not always will they transfer to the 4-year university you want to attend. So do some research and make sure that you know which is going to transfer. If you have a lot of those credits, some of it may transfer and others won't. For some Townview students, it's very advantageous to attend a community college before they go to a 4-year university because it saves them a lot of money. Whereas other students have already reached the maximum amount of transfer credits they're allowed by the time they graduate high school. It's important you do your homework and know where exactly you're going and what they will accept. You don't want to waste more time going to a school getting credits that you won't be able to use. And of course, if the field that you're pursuing doesn't require you to have a degree, or it only requires a specific type of training like an associate's degree or a professional certificate, then you don't need to go to college, and going to school may not be the best idea. College is very, very expensive, more so now than it's ever been before. And so going to a college that you don't need to go to or going to an expensive college when you could go to a cheaper college is going to cost you money unnecessarily. If you're considering going into the military, you will often be able to get college for free and also get many other benefits of the training in military. And we're not just talking about combat training, but training in technology or medicine or a number of other things. All of this leads us to say that you should start early and take your time to research. You'll have to answer a lot of questions and gather a lot of information before you'll be able to decide what schools are good fits for you. When you're deciding your school, you're also thinking about your career field, and that leads you to select your major. Your major is what you're going to be focusing on during college. It's what you're going to take the majority of your classes in when you're in college. And so you're going to get a degree in that field. It's important that you consider the school's specialties and make sure that the school's specialties align with your goals and the field that you want to pursue. If you have a school that is very much into technology and STEM, and you want to pursue a field that is not in that area, it may not be a good field for you. If you have a school that is very broad-based in terms of liberal arts college, but you want a very, very, very specific program, they may not offer it. So know what the school is able to do. This also comes in handy if you decide to change majors while you're there, Because if they already have the other major or the other field or the other direction that you're looking at, you can change that from the same school without transferring to a different school. Now, as everyone is getting ready for college and getting excited about where they may go, keep in mind that the perfect school for one person is not necessarily the perfect school for everyone. You have to make your own decision about what is right for you, even if that decision may come into conflict with family and friends. Now, I should note, don't ignore the advice of people who know you well, and don't ignore the advice of people who have some experience with college. They may have insight that you don't, and they may have knowledge that you aren't aware of. But ultimately, you have to take in all of this information and make what's a good, well-informed decision for you and for your career path. You cannot rely on a school's reputation, whether it's from someone else's experience or from just things that you've heard from online or your research. You need to do a little bit of first-hand experiencing. Go on a college visit, talk to faculty directly, call them on the phone, talk to other students, see how they feel about the school. Some schools have a great reputation because they're a great school. And some schools have a great reputation because they have a great marketing department. You only really can find out the difference with some first-hand experience. School size is important to consider. The larger the school, the more people will be there. The more people are in the school, the larger the classes are going to be. That's going to be a very different dynamic if you're in a 300-person class than if you're in a 20-person class. Small schools will allow you to get to know people a little bit easier because it's fewer people, and give your professors a chance to get to know you a little better because it's smaller classes. But large schools often have an easier time with scheduling because they have so many more classes and more course offerings and more social or group offerings as well. So there are pros and cons to both. One is not better or worse than the other. It's a matter of your goals and your preference. Also consider the differences between public school and private school. While most public schools run on the larger side, and most private schools run on the smaller side, there are exceptions to this. There are very, very large private schools and there are very, very small public schools. So size is a factor in terms of that, but also public schools and private schools will sometimes have different philosophies and different degree plans. You may be required to take different classes at a public school than you are at a private school. So pay attention to that as well. Of course, one of the biggest differences in that is money. Public schools often are much, much cheaper than private schools. But private schools often have far better scholarships. For one person, public school will be cheaper, and for another person, private school will be cheaper, depending on how they are offered scholarships. Location and geography are also important, but don't get too tied up with them. They are secondary to what the school itself offers. You do need to pay attention to them because you may really enjoy living in a specific place or a specific environment, and that will affect your quality of life. Some degree fields are also very dependent on location. If you want to get a degree in marine biology, you should probably go somewhere where they have access to water. If you want to get a degree in international business, you should probably be in a location where there's a lot of international access, like a large metropolitan city and an international airport, so on and so forth. Other fields are not dependent on location at all. You can study that wherever you are. And as time moves on and we spend more of our lives online, exact location becomes less and less important. Once you're looking at that, you have to obviously take the cost of the school into account. It is very likely that college is the most expensive thing that you will ever purchase. For many people, it is even more expensive than their home. And it's going to be something that will have a lot of direct effect on your future. So, cost is very important because you're going to, for many people, be saddled with a fair amount of debt after school. If you acquire debt going to college, you need to make sure that the career you're headed into will enable you to pay that debt off relatively quickly. You don't want to amass a ton of debt and then go into a field that won't pay very much money because you'll be paying that debt off for a very, very, very long time. Now, many of us have had experience with online instruction, and we've all had some experience with in-person instruction, and colleges offer a blend of those as well and have for a long, long time. Some people do really well in one environment versus the other, and it's important that you know what kind of person you are and what you need. This is also connected to the size of the school and the size of the class. It's going to be largely dependent on the person. Some will have a better experience with one or the other. Many people, and I'm one of them, suggest that by the end of your junior year, you should have about 5 schools that you are interested in applying for. Now, typically that ends up being a broad spectrum of types of schools, but what they all have in common is that they are all schools that you are interested in attending. They may not all be your top choice, but they're all schools that you think you would be happy there. At least one of those 5 schools should be a very safe school. You're basically guaranteed to get into it. You look at their admission rate, you look at their admission requirements, you look at what their average student gets when they admit there, and you are above and beyond what that is. At least one school should be an absolute dream school, a reach school that takes almost nobody. You probably wouldn't get into, but you would just love if you did because they are one of the best schools around for whatever it is that you want to do. The other schools fall somewhere in between there. Now, I say 5. 5 is a really good number. A lot of people will do more. I don't think that you should do 30. I think that that's probably too much. Try to hone in on the schools that you really, really want because the more schools you apply to, the more applications you're going to have to apply with, and that's going to create a lot of extra stress and work. If you're not really interested and passionate about the school, it's probably not worth your time to apply. Now, the exception to this is your mass applications. Things like Common App and Apply Texas can allow you to apply to a lot of schools all at once, and those are very convenient if there are a number of schools on that list that you're interested in. It takes very little effort to apply to several. It's a little bit of effort to apply to one and not a whole lot more to apply to several of them. Those are very, very helpful for increasing the amount of schools that you're applying to without increasing the workload drastically. One of my biggest regrets when I was preparing for college is that I did not pursue financial aid aggressively enough. You should absolutely go after any financial aid you can. And there's a number of different types that we'll talk about in just a moment. Most people are busy and stressed, and they're so concerned with picking their school that they don't think too much about the cost, and this is absolutely a mistake. You need to think about the cost of the school. You need to think about how you're going to cover that cost, and don't just automatically assume you're going to cover it all with loans because that can really bite you later on. The first thing you need to do is apply for your FAFSA. This is going to require tax information from your parents, so make sure that your parents have paid their taxes and filed their tax returns. You're going to need family income for that. This is an online application. It's very easy to find. It does not take very long to fill out. You just need some important information. And this shows the government what your potential sources of college funding are, how much money your family is expected to contribute, and how much money you have. And depending on what that looks like, it will qualify you for some financial aid or other financial aid. Essentially, the less money you have available, the more financial aid is open to you. You're going to also need to apply to a school's financial aid office. Every college has their own financial aid office. And once you know that you're going to go to that school and once you've been accepted, then you then you get applications from them and you fill out aid for that school. Many schools, if you are the type of student that they're looking for, will have scholarships available. And so you can get FAFSA money from the government and you can get academic money from the school. And then there are sometimes other sources as well. And your counselor is going to have some information about that, and you can do your own research online. Now, the order that I listed them in is typically the order in amounts. The government has the largest amounts they're going to give you in many cases. Then the college is going to have financial aid that they can offer you. And for some, it's going to be very, very large. If it's a selective private school and they have access to large scholarships, that can be very large. But for many schools, the money you get from the university is going to be a little bit smaller than your FAFSA. Then any outside scholarships are often very, very small, but you could apply for and get several of them. So do some research there. Corporations often have scholarships. There are some community organization scholarships. Some churches have scholarships. If you are working a job, sometimes your job may offer scholarships or tuition assistance or something like that. So look everywhere you can. And then accept as much as you need and plan for a little bit extra. Now, what sort of money are these financial aid amounts in? Well, the best kind is a grant. A grant is free money. You have convinced us that you need money for something. Here is the money. You don't have to pay grants back. They're specifically designated for education or for whatever the grant is for. You use it for that and you're good. If you don't use it for that, then you have to give the money back. But as long as you use it for what you're supposed to, then you don't ever have to return it. Now, the next best thing are scholarships. Scholarships are also wonderful. Scholarships are, you have convinced us that you deserve this money. We're going to give you this money as long as you maintain something. Now, most academic scholarships are, you have to be a full-time student with a certain GPA, you have to be in good academic standing, etc., etc. Some have specific requirements beyond that, but that's the general idea. Scholarships are great because it's usually stuff that you would already need to do to keep the scholarship. So they're very similar in terms of scholarships and grants. You have to do something to prove that you should get it prior to it, but then scholarships you have to continue doing whatever that is to keep it. The next best thing, in my opinion, is work study. Now, college work study is a type of financial aid, and it's also a job. Here's how this folds out. You qualify for work study by showing that you have a financial need for it. You qualify for it through your FAFSA, and then you get a job. And these are typically very simple, kind of menial college jobs. They don't require a whole lot of effort, but they do require a little bit. But you usually have a fair amount of discretionary time. You'll work for a small portion of every hour, and the rest of the time you're kind of sitting around. This is the time that you get to study. So it is working and studying while you're on the job, and you get paid by the hour. So in essence, you get paid to do a little bit of work and a little bit of studying. You often get paid fairly well, especially considering the amount of work that you're doing. Colleges have a ton of these menial, simple jobs that students work to keep the college running. They could be in the library or in the student union building or in the cafeteria or in the dorms. Lots of other work studies, very, very simple. Highly, highly recommend these jobs because they're so easy and they pay better than they probably should. And that money goes toward paying for your school expenses. Now, there's a second type of work study that's more intensive. It requires a specific set of skills, it requires a specific set of knowledge, and you're actually working. But these are often work studies toward a specific field and often toward your major. You might work in the writing lab, working with younger students or less experienced writers on technical writing. You might work as some sort of assistant to a professor, something like that. So that's going to require a lot more work, but it often will give you good experience as well. And it often usually pays better too. So that makes sense. More work equals better pay. And then there's a third type that's not necessarily work study, but it is a college job. And that's to be a resident assistant or RA. And these are people that are basically students who live in the dorms and they're in charge of the dorms. They're responsible for making sure everyone gets moved in and everyone gets moved out and everyone's following all the rules and everyone's doing what they're supposed to do and not breaking any student code of conduct. And in exchange, they often are paid very well. Usually, RAs get free housing, sometimes a little bit more. They might get free food as well from the food plans, but it's a very well-paying job, but it requires a large amount of continuous involvement. So the nice thing about college jobs is that there's a variety of different levels of engagement, and there's a variety of different benefits from those. Now, the next type is subsidized loans. Subsidized loans are loans that you are given to spend on school, and the government pays the loan's interest while you're in school. The other kind, unsubsidized loans, are loans that you get in which no one pays your interest. Here's the big difference. After 4 years or 6 years or maybe more of being in school, your loan will have accrued a lot of interest. So if you take out $10,000, then it's going to be much more than $10,000 when you have to pay it back. Now, if it's a subsidized loan, all of that extra is already paid for. If it's an unsubsidized loan, it's not. The subsidized loan doesn't start accruing interest until you've already left school. The unsubsidized loan still has interest while you're in school. So my recommendation is take everything you can in terms of grants, scholarships, and work study. Subsidized loans are a very good choice for most people, especially since the loan interest is often quite low. And unsubsidized loans are things you should only take out if you really, really need it. I think I probably took out one unsubsidized loan throughout college. I was able to avoid it most of the rest of the time. Also, just personal disclosure, I did all of these things. I got grants, I got scholarships, I did work study. So you can find a way to pay for school with a wide variety of things. I also worked a regular job off of campus as well. You can do that too to help pay for school. But start with financial aid. When you're finally making a decision, think, what did you get interested about originally? What made you reach out to that school? What made you consider that school to start with? Make a pro-con list. Think about, okay, this school has this thing that I like, and this other school has this other thing, and they're different. Which one do I think is a higher priority? Which one is more important to me? Because no two schools will be identical. Every school will be better at some things and worse at others. Some schools will have more facilities and amenities. Some schools will be cheaper. Some schools may have a really strong program for you want. Other schools might have location that you really like. So it's just going to depend on what your priorities are. If possible, you should visit every campus. Going to a school, having never been there, is like buying a house that you've never seen. You just heard it was really good. So it is definitely worth the plane ticket to go visit a school, or the day off of school and a road trip to go visit a school to see if you really like it. Many times over the years, I have had a student who was passionate about going to a school, and when they visited it, they immediately changed their mind. You want to make that decision before you're actually enrolled in the school, before you've committed to going there. While you're there, Talk with people in the department that you're interested in the field or the major that you're interested in. Try to sit in on a class. Talk to professors, talk to students, ask people why they like being there, what the best part of the school is. Consider the strength of the school as a whole and the specific department you're looking in. That, again, really comes in handy if you decide to shift gears and change majors. If the school has many things that they're good at, then it's easier to change degrees within that school. But if the school really only does one thing well and you decide you don't want to do that, now you have to go to an entirely different school. You also have to keep in mind, does ranking matter? Is that important to you in terms of how colleges are ranked? It should be regionally accredited. Regionally accreditation is very important. National accreditation means almost nothing. But in terms of ranking, is that something that's important to you or not? Many college ranking lists use vastly different things to rank them. So what they use to rank the school may not even be a priority for you. Definitely compare the financial aid amounts because this is drastically going to change the out-of-pocket cost. More expensive schools can suddenly become cheaper with large financial aid awards, so keep that in mind. And also, it's important to remember that rarely will a school be a perfect fit for anyone. It will just be the best fit for you. You'll probably have to compromise on something. While this decision is very important, it's not permanent, it's not irreversible. You can choose to change fields, change careers, change schools. It is totally possible. I did that. I changed both my major and my school. And it was very good that I did that, and it was not a terrible thing that I had to go and repeat a couple of classes. Most schools also don't require you to select your major right away, so you can spend some time taking some exploratory courses and figuring out what you want. But keep in mind, the longer you spend doing that, the more time and money you spend. So you want to do that and explore the field that you're interested in, but you want to do it as quickly as you can. The only thing that costs you is time and money, and they're both valuable, so we don't want to waste them. We want to spend them wisely. But use your time and use your money to find the right school and the right career and the right fit for you. That wraps up this part of our college talk, but we are far from being done. The next section, we're going to talk about actually being in college and being part of life, moving in, and what all of that experience is like. So I hope that you'll join me again for that.